Just fetch the YouTube link as always. Again, sorry about the delay on my part. I had to I suddenly had to update the Mac OS version, or it didn't let me start logging into Chrome. All right, the link is pasted on Telegram. Do we start? Martin, do you want to go next? Would go first.
Sure. So yesterday I don't remember actually, but today I was basically I had a long meeting with Paul to discuss a bit like the high level flow and all the vertical slices and how do we want to approach this. I think it was a good conversation. I was also so yesterday someone asked wanted to contribute like if they should continue with the SSC, which were more like beginner friendly, or if there was other stuff to do. So I thought like maybe we want to create a new set of issues that might be a little bit more challenging than the SSC one. So I was thinking maybe a good option could be the BLS one. I would just interface with the Lighthouse BLS library for now, maybe through an if. And and as part of the task also like require that the spec test pass. I don't know what you guys think. It seems like something that should be a bit more challenging, but not that much. And it's not also not the core. Eventually, we want to move from that implementation to the one from Lambda class that the Lambda Works one that some Lambda Works folks are working on. But in the meantime, maybe we can use the one from Lighthouse. Anyway, we are gonna reuse most of the code for the NIF and the spec tests. So yeah, I was starting to maybe create issues for that, but I wanted to wait for you guys to see what you think and maybe also create issues for other stuff. Apart from that, I'm also want to start playing with the P2P library and get that stuff going, so I don't get too behind on that. And yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
Oh, I generally agree with the BLS idea. I'm not sure about the level of difficulty, but just interfacing with the Lighthouse implementation shouldn't be too hard. So I think it's a good issue as well. Paul, do you want to go next?
Sure. Today I've been mostly focusing on finalizing my implementation of the new SSD types. Which are, as we said, execution payload header, execution payload, and withdraw. And then I had a very long discussion, and it was really, really cool with Martin, where we discussed like some questions that I had, and just because he had a better understanding than me on the global picture, and then we went through also the roadmap, etc. So now it's a lot clearer, like for me, like what's the global vision. I think it's pretty clear. Um, and what we have right now, I think, is pretty. It's really good, and we can start like iterating on that. So that's cool. That's mainly it for now. I'll finalize the implementation of the last types that I have, and after I continue working towards the next goals that we have for the first milestone.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Tomas, do you want to continue?
Okay. Yesterday I worked on. I started to work on the networking component. I opened the PR with using Broadway to discover peers and connect to them. Also, did finish implementing one type. I had the index at the station one, and also other error handling for the from ELX trait. uh, I'm a bit blocked with the whole networking component. Uh, Today I'm gonna continue working with that, and if I get blocked, I'll try to ask some questions. Maybe we can get on a call or something if I need that much help.
Yeah, of
Uh,
course. What's the source of the blockage? Are you like not getting how to
I'm
do some things in Elixir? Is or
Yeah,
understanding like okay, yeah, we can
mostly,
talk about that. We can schedule a meeting for later today.
and that will help me a lot.
That's cool. Is that related to discovery or to like listening to messages in general, or like how to
No,
structure?
it's
See,
mostly how to make how to design the whole supervision tree for the like discovery and managing peers and the whole topic subscribing and receiving and gossip receiving, all of that.
cool. Yeah, that we can do that. Yeah, no need to wait until getting more blocked. Like it sounds like a talk would help a lot. We can do that. Anything
Okay.
else?
Nothing else. Oh, I had an issue of maybe we can give it to someone else, to some external contributor, for adding error handling on the libp2p NIF. Right now, it already has some kind of error handling. It just sends a generic message whenever it failed. The thing is, it just prints it from the Go side, the actual error message to screen. The idea is to just like propagate a string with that message instead of printing it. It's kind of straightforward, so it might be easy to give it to some external contributor.
Sure, that sounds cool. Do we have the issue for that already so that we can
Yeah,
link it in? Okay. Have we linked it on Telegram? And if not, we can do
uh,
that.
well, let's do that then.
Yeah, like if every time that we get a new like first good collaboration issue, we can just copy it in Telegram so that people know they have something they can collaborate on.
Okay, I'll do that then.
Awesome, thank you.
That's all.
Cool. On my side, I have been doing some research on the deep like the storage representations. I've been doing some research on level DB, bold DB, etc. I'm trying to get like between a design and a decision by the end of today or maybe at some point tomorrow, just so that we can unblock like the general uh, block storage idea. Like like for the first milestone, as all of you know, we only need to receive blocks and just store them, but we need to have at least a reasonable first iteration for that. Um, right now, what I'm focusing the most on is trying to see where most of the storage overhead lies. Like for instance, if the historic vectors are the ones that take the biggest size, and if that's the case, if we can just deduplicate them and cache blocks that were just requested as like sorry beacon states that were just requested and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm trying to wrap my head around that. I'll like as soon as I have something, I will write a markdown document. Maybe I'll add it to a README, but I think that for the first iteration, I can just um, add it in an issue, and then after we have a final decision, then we can move it to the README and just have that as part of the plan. But yeah, I think that's it. Nothing else on my side. So, does anyone have any comments or questions? All right, that's cool. I think we have nothing, so we can finish the meeting. And
Actually,
oh,
Paul
sorry,
has
yeah,
something.
yeah, go ahead, Paul. I wasn't hearing you. Sorry.
No, you
Yeah.
should come in.
Okay. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. I have a good idea. an idea for a good first issue. Actually, I think it would be pretty easy, but I think it's still important. Most of the types that are implemented in in on both sides, which are the types for in Rust and in Elixir, they also need constants. So we should implement those constants, and like we're implementing the types, but we should also, I think, implement those constants. So I think it could be a good first issue for someone to implement all the needed constants for the types on both sides, on the Elixir and on the Rust side.
Yeah, I think that's true. I also I do recall, however, Thomas Gruner saying something about constants being non-trivial due to the different hard forks. And Thomas, do you care to elaborate? Do we have a solution or idea for that? Vaguely recall that we were just hard coding them for now for mainnet.
Um, yeah, it's the thing is with in Rust they in Lighthouse they use generics. Now, like the SSC types for fixed vector and variable list we are using use generic types to set the length. In the case of the fixed vector, the fixed length, and on the variable list, the maximum length, and those are compile time. So we would need to hard code like uh, for each different value of those constants. Uh, I
I
am
didn't get why would we need to hard code for each, because basically they are hard coded because they are constants, right? But
yeah.
we just need to implement the latest version, right?
Yes, but they change like different test nets, right? Like if you go to like for mainnet, there's just one value for each constant now. But if you want this node to work for Goerli or Sepolia or whatever testnet is the most popular these days, you probably need to change some of those, right? Is that the case?
Yes, you'll need to like other another version of, with the new constants.
Maybe
And
what we can do is like a merge between what you two were saying, which is just have all of the constants written down for mainnet, and then when we implement SSZ ourselves, then we can just take care of that in Elixir. What do you guys think? Does that make sense?
Yeah, they are actually in. They are already distributed as YAML files for both this. I think they are in the spec tests. Uh, they are in presets and configs, depending on which type of constant it is. We can just get get those values from those files.
but I don't know. I don't. I think maybe we didn't understand each other. Like it's just for me right now. We're implementing manually all the constants. Where basically, for example, the logs bloom is in Rust is a fixed vector of type U64 with a max length of 256, right? But 256 is not, it's not only 256 because it's 256, it's 256 because it's the number of bytes per log bloom. And so normally instead of writing U64 256, we're supposed to write U64 bytes per log bloom. And so because we have all these constants that are existent in the specs, and so it's mainly just someone that builds this all these constants. So when we're writing them, when we're writing down all the types, we're using the names of the constants to follow the specs and not just code like manually like the 256.
Yeah, I think that we're understanding each other. We're just like subtlety saying slightly different things. I
Yeah.
agree that we should have those constants both in both languages, like both in in Go and in Elixir, or in Rust and in Elixir, depending on the part that we are taking care of. I fully agree with that. I think that there's like a problem that we need to solve at some point, which is that different test nets have different constants for certain things. Lengths of vectors, I think those are the same independently of the test net, but some of the constants, or is that something? Is that different, Thomas?
Yeah, in some places it differs. Until now, uh, I just read the constant values for the minimal and mainnet. Minimal isn't actually used for testnets, but it's on for the spec tests. But it already changes the length of some vectors, mainly because fixed vectors, when you serialize it, even if it's all zeros, you still need to like add those values because it's the length is already fixed.
All
And
right,
so
I think that
use,
we should move this to an issue and discuss it in the issue, because I think that there's more subtlety here. I'm still not sure if what you're saying is that we have to accommodate for spec tests, or if that's something that we should accommodate for production and test nets. Uh, I think that in either case, this is probably an issue that we will need to solve in the mid future, after we at least have constants working for mainnet. And I think that in that sense, what Paul says makes sense. An external collaborator, can always just like write all of the constants down in each of the languages, or any of us, but we can have an issue for that.
I think what we can do is like the constants in the Rust side are you have to enter them like with types, which are like integers codified as Rust types. What we can do, I don't know if it was what you, Paul Henry, uh, meant, but we can do a type alias. Like for example, if it's the max committee size, we can use a type max committee size equals a type num and the integer value
I
for
wouldn't
the
go like as deep as that in this discussion. Like, let's leave implementation
okay.
details for the issue, so that we like it's I think it's too much to process in this meeting. But we're not discussing implementation yet. We're just discussing what we should do next. Like, I think I would go with what Paul is saying. Like, hey, we have a bunch of constants that we should have available both in Elixir and Rust. I don't know if we need them in Go, because Go is mostly for lib2p
No.
these days, but Rust and Elixir, we should have them in both languages. And I think that that's how we do that. That's outside of the scope of this meeting. Um, but we should definitely have that. And afterwards, we should, like, after we at least have the basic constants in, we should make sure that we can configure them. Like, hey, I want to have this node working for both this testnet and mainnet and the spec tests. How do I do that? I think in Elixir that's probably easier than in Rust, and in Rust it requires some level um, of generics, as you said, that could be an implementation. But let's talk about that in the future when we have that problem. And
Okay.
also, like, one of the most important things, I don't want to have this being too generic, especially if we at some point we will implement SSZ ourselves. Like, it wouldn't make sense to build something extremely complicated in Rust just to have different configurations, if we can handle that easily in Elixir when we implement SSZ
Yeah, I think
ourselves.
it'll be easier in Elixir. We
Yeah.
can use instead of issues, we can use GitHub discussions. I don't know if they are enabled for the repo.
Never heard of them, but sure. Um, I would start at least have an issue, and then you can tell me how discussions work, or I can Google it
Okay.
actually. But yeah, let's at least have an issue saying that we want to have the constants, which is what Paul Henry said at the beginning of the conversation, and then we can mark it as good first issue. And then we can and then we can have a second one, which is making them generic, and we can continue this discussion in there. Is that okay for you guys?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Anything else for today? All right, I'll take that as a no. And if that's the case, we can finish the meeting for today. Thank you all for joining, and see you tomorrow.